All right. Welcome. Thank you for coming to my information session. I'm Clay. Just call me Clay. I'm a professor in computer science, and I'm also what's called the PI, which is primary investigator of the Scholarship for Service PUT program. Please have a cupcake if you haven't had one. Anybody here a first-year student? Okay. You're not eligible for the program yet. Okay. You knew that? Okay, good. Then I'll skip this about saying that you can stay or go or have a cupcake or just whatever you want. But I won't be able to admit you this year because we only do funding for 2 years, okay? So here are the topics, and this is typically what I would talk about, which is what the hell is the program, how does it work, who's eligible, how do I get in, what are the odds? But I know that these aren't the order that you want the topics in. You want them in the order of what are the odds, who is eligible, and then all the other stuff, right? Is that probably what you want? So that's what most people want. So what I'm going to tell you is everything that I know, but I would like to give a word of caution. And the word of caution is that we've been running this program now for almost 10 years. I've lost track of the time, 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. We've been running the program for a while, and everything I say is based on past experience. And I try to be really transparent. Like if you ever want to talk to someone who's in the program, I can put you in touch and hopefully they will tell you that I'm transparent about what's going on because I have nothing to hide. It works really well. But the problem is I just don't know what's going to happen. The new administration has had some very different ideas about what government should be doing and who should be working and whether they should be protecting computer systems at all. So things could change unexpectedly. All these changes are completely out of my control. Last year, we went through all this. We had the information session. At the last minute, we were not allowed to admit anyone. This year, I think, is different because what happened is, they put a freeze on government hire. They went crazy and tried to fire everybody. And what they eventually did was put a plan in place where every agency had to get a hiring plan approved and vetted by the administration before they could start hiring again. So there was no hiring for a really long time, like 9 months. But my understanding now is that these different government agencies have their hiring plans in place and are being approved so that we are starting to see people hiring again, government's hiring again. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be like. So the odds, typically in the past, the scholarship's been really competitive depending on a couple of things, which is the year, how many applicants we have, and how much funding we have in a particular year. We've accepted anywhere between 5 to 20%. 5 tends to be when we have lower side, 20% when we have more. We plan to admit right now between 7 and 9 students for 2 years. That is a larger number, so the odds will probably be higher depending on how many people apply for the program. Okay, so we're looking at that. So the way it works is I have a budget. The amount of budget I have lets me get students into the program. Some students that we admit are more expensive than others. So essentially what we do is we look and figure out kind of a sort of semi-rank order what we want. We compared it against the budget that we've proposed in the past, which has been blown to pieces by all the changes, so I'm sort of making it up again as I go along, and then we let the students in that we can afford to let in. Does that make sense? So undergraduates are much more expensive than grad students, so it depends on what the grad student balance is. So this is 7 to 9 students for 2 years, and this is across all academic programs, right? I'm going to get into this more detail later, but this is a scholarship program, not an educational program, and so you have to be enrolled in one of the programs, which most of you probably already are, and then we just pay for it that way, okay? I will say that if you only need 1 year of money, if you are like a junior going to be a senior next year, or a grad student coming into their second year, some 1-year acceptances might be possible. We have to get permission from those. That hasn't been an issue in the last couple of years, because when we made our plan, we planned for some 1-year students, and then they came out with a rule saying no more 1-year students, but I was like, we already had it in our budget, and so then they let people in. So hopefully we'd still be able to do that, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so I don't know what the odds are, probably better this year than other years because we're admitting people from that we didn't get to admit last year and for this year, if that makes sense. We have a little extra money. Okay. Who's eligible? First off, you have to be a US citizen or a green card holder. Most of the time, if you're here in this room talking to me, it doesn't matter that much, but I'm also recording this and we'll put it on YouTube, and people watching on YouTube need to know that you need to be a US citizen or green card holder. This is non-negotiable. When Congress passed the law that created the program that does this, they put that into the law, so we have no way around it or anything. We have an in-person requirement. We do not support online students. Sorry if you're listening to this and wanted to come online. You must be earning a degree. Georgetown has a number of certificate programs. The way the law is written, the program only applies to people who are getting a full degree. And you have to be a full-time student. Full-time student means taking full-time credit hours under the program that you are in. If you reach the final year of your program and you have if you need fewer credits to graduate than what full-time is, we will talk at that point and work something out. Okay, that happens sometimes and we're able to deal with that. The program that you're enrolled in can essentially be anything at Georgetown with the provision that it teaches adequate security skills to get you hired into federal employment. So that's, I think later I'll talk about some of the programs, but it's definitely like CS, STIA, security studies, cybersecurity risk management. And if you're in some other program, you can make an argument for it. We've had people who have been in other programs and actually law school as well. So we're able to, as long as we're able to justify it and we're able to make a good argument, we can probably support it. Okay. Again, this may not apply to anyone here, but we can support working students. So students who come back and are working full-time are eligible for the program. There is a little thing that, normally we provide a stipend for students who are in the program, but if you're working full-time, you don't get to have a stipend instead because you have a salary. So if you're working, your stipend is reduced or eliminated depending on how much work you are doing, like how many hours a week you are working. I will say that for most people who are working full-time, the stipend is probably less than the salary. It's just so you can keep advancing in your career and keep your job. The only difficulty is you have to handle working full-time while doing your full-time academic program. Some programs are designed for that, right? Some programs have evening classes and stuff like that, so that works out. All right. Questions so far? Okay. So what is this? What are we doing? This program was developed a number of years ago to address a governmental problem. And the problem the government had is that people with cybersecurity skills are expensive to hire, right? Why would you go and work for the government when you can, say, go work at Google for twice the salary, right? Why would you do that? So what ended up happening was they were having a hard time hiring people into government to work in cybersecurity positions because they just couldn't pay them enough. So the solution they came up with was this. If they can't pay more, they can start offering a scholarship, and they can start paying you essentially ahead of time. So the way I look at it is it's like a way to prepay your salary. As an undergrad student, you're getting $100,000 a year for a couple of years, and then you have to work for a couple of years after. If you add it all up, you get about the same as you would have. So they came up with a scholarship for service program that does this. It is not just at Georgetown. There's about now 120 schools all around the country that do this. It's a relatively big program. The schools themselves are really wide and really varied in what they do. Some are small community colleges, some are state schools, either small or large state schools, and there's more selective private schools like us, right? There's just a huge variety. And that's fine, that's great. Actually, they all produce really, really different students. And that's also good because there are a wide range of things you can do in cybersecurity, and we need a wide variety of skill sets. So I like to say as an aside that studying cybersecurity is like studying medicine. You don't really go to school to get a medicine degree, right? You can go to medical school, but you'll come out as a doctor or something else. Cybersecurity is quite similar. So just like they have doctor, nurse anesthetist, orderly, I don't even know, respiratory therapist. We could go on and on with a whole bunch of different medical things that are all different specialties within medicine. Cybersecurity has its own range of things as well. So you might be a system administrator, a cyber defender, a forensic analysis. These are kind of more hands-on applied direct jobs that community colleges and a lot of the state schools do. You might do something like become a software engineer or a system analyst, which requires a little bit more skills. And then you can get kind of other jobs that are even more managerial researchy that are like program manager, auditor, policy planner, things like that. And so our program turns out students who have different skill sets and a lot of the other skills that go into smaller, kind of more niche, but still important areas. All right, so kind of higher skilled jobs. So these jobs, if you're interested in these and a lot more, are listed in this thing. It's called the cybersecurity. Come on in. Here. I got some seats. Grab a cupcake if you like. These are all in this document. If you want to look it up, it's the 800 NIST 800-181 Cybersecurity Workforce Framework, and that talks about a lot of the different jobs there are in cybersecurity. So the Scholarship for Service program, like nationwide, turns out, you know, a couple of thousand students a year, maybe 1,000 students a year, in all sorts of positions, okay, like that. So how does the program work? If you are in this program, you get full support, literally full support. You get all of your tuition paid, you get all your required fees paid, and you get a stipend for living. It's $27,000 a year for undergraduates and $37,000 a year for grad students. It's paid split in half at the beginning of each semester. You don't get anything over the summer, but typically you're going to be getting an internship over the summer, and that's paid anyway. We pay health insurance. We pay $6,000 for textbook and supplies and professional development. Now, professional development funds, you get to choose what to do with most of this, okay? You can use it for, you can buy one laptop we'll pay for. You can use it for training and certificate programs. You can use it for travel to cybersecurity conferences. The one thing you have to do, though, is save a little bit of money for the job fair. There is a job fair that is held as part of the Scholarship for Service program every year, typically in January. This year we didn't do it because everything was, you know, yucky. They're doing like a virtual job fair a little bit later. So you have to go to the job fair. For us, that does not cost very much because it's here in DC, so it's like, you know, you take an Uber over and you pay your registration back. It's like $300 or $400 out of your $6,000. For students coming from Hawaii, the professional development, like the job fair, eats up a lot of theirs. So we are in a kind of a lucky position where we can use a lot of our professional development money for other stuff, right, instead of just travel to there. Like I said, you can attend conferences, you can get technical training, you can buy one laptop, okay? The total value of this, it's approximate because it depends on a bunch of things, but for grad students, it's roughly $85,000 a year, and for undergrads, it's about $100,000 a year. That is the value, rough value of what you will get in the scholarship, okay? Now, if you go back and ever read the documents, like the documents and the laws and stuff, we are, in theory, allowed to support students for 3 years, but we as a local policy are only supporting students for 2 years, and that's for budget reasons. We would prefer to get more people through the program, and so limiting how long any one person can be in the program lets us get more people through the program, so we decided to do that. So that $100,000, that $85,000 over 2 years, a lot. It's like enough to make up the salary difference from you not getting a scholarship and then going working at Google for 2 years. Like you'll end up making about the same amount of money. The cool thing about it, I will let you know though, is that when you're in government, very often you get to do a lot more than anybody would ever let you do at a company as like a student fresh out of school, right? They give you a lot more responsibility. You are actively, you know, working on the front lines of cybersecurity. Nation states are doing cyber stuff to each other all the time. It is the place to work if you actually want experience. And then you typically, depending where you work, and we'll talk about this a little later, if you get a security clearance when you go out to work after, if you leave government because you don't like it and go get a job, you'll have a security clearance which will make you a lot of money as well. If you get 2 years of support, like for a junior and senior year or 2 years of grad school, during the summer in between, you are required to have an internship. And so your first year, you'll be looking for a governmental internship you can work in over the summer for 10 weeks. Typically, this is paid. Nice thing again is that we're in DC. It's often easier to get an internship for us around here because there's so many federal agencies. You can, you know, live wherever you're living if you live off campus and such and stay over the summer. And this internship is usually paid. Now, a question I get is typically, if you're required to have a summer internship and you're someone who is working full-time, you're a full-time student, how do you do this? And the answer is, the only full-time student we've had so far is somebody who is working for government anyway. So his government service counted for his internship. I don't really know what happens if you're like a non-governmental worker and you have to get an internship. So if that becomes an issue for you, let me know. And this is, again, probably for people in the recording. If you're going to be planning on working full-time, I would have to look into what happens. So they're giving you all this money, and what do they want back? So in exchange, you will work in a government cybersecurity position for as long as you were supported, 1 year minimum. We did have one student come who only wanted 1 semester of support once, and we gave him a semester of support, and he was happy, and he went to work for government for a year. But you have to do it 1 year minimum. So if we support you for 1 year, you work in government for a year. If we support you for 2 years, you go to government for 2 years. And a lot of people stay after that, actually. Like, I don't know the stats, but more than half, I would stay in government after their immediate term is up, because it's pretty interesting. If you do not get a job and you do not work for government long enough, what we have supported you with turns into a loan, and you have to pay it back, which would be bad for you, right? Who wants to have like another $200,000 of debt in a couple of years out of college? So it's bad for you, unless, of course, Google or someone paid them off. And this happens sometimes. It's happened not here at Georgetown, but at other schools where somebody is like graduating out and Google goes, we want to hire you. And they're like, yeah, but I have this scholarship and I have to pay it back. And Google goes, oh, we'll pay it back for you. And then they go off to Google, and it's sort of a mess. So it might be bad for you to turn in a loan. It might not, because somebody else might pay it off for you. But it would be very bad for us. And us, I mean the people in the program at Georgetown. And here is why it is. When we give this scholarship, it is not need-based. It is merit-based, right? We are trying to find the best people we can that meet our criteria that are going to go and work for government. But this scholarship allows us to bring students to Georgetown who would not be able to afford to come otherwise. So, me as the PI and the other PIs who work in the program, like this, it's something we do, it's part of our job. It does not materially change my life. Like, I don't get much more money out of this than I would doing something else. I get a lot less than I would be doing if I were doing consulting, okay? But it allows us to like bring people into Georgetown who wouldn't come otherwise, and we like that. That's essentially our goal in this whole program. So from time to time, every 4 or 5 years, we have to go up for renewal, and our renewal is based on our success in placing students in government, okay? Up until last year, when hiring freeze happened, and some of our students who are still looking for jobs because of the hiring freeze happened, we had a 100% success rate. We're doing quite well. The problem is that we're a small enough program, like only having like 5, we'll have like maybe 8 students this year. Other schools have like 25 or 30, right? So our program is small enough that if one person takes a loan, then it damages our success rate, and it might lower it enough that we would not be able to get a renewal. So that means if we're not able to get a renewal, then there's some future student who might not be able to come to Georgetown because the money wouldn't be there. So what we're asking is we take this obligation to get a job really seriously. Like I was in the Army, I committed to being in the Army for a number of years. This isn't quite like joining the Army, like it's a little bit better, but the commitment should be viewed as the same. Like if you're going to join, it's a serious commitment, and we expect you to try very hard to succeed, not just for you, but for other people who need the program later. Does that make sense? So if you graduate and somehow accept one of these loans and don't get a job, then you're like screwing everybody who comes behind you. Okay, we don't want that to happen. All right, other things you have to do. While you're here, you have to take enough cybersecurity classes to make you employable. That's typically not an issue. You'll all be pretty employable. We are just a scholarship and not a degree program. I'm saying this more for the people who are listening to the recording. A lot of the scholarship for service programs actually have an academic degree that goes along with it. Like they accept a cohort of people into a cybersecurity course of study or degree program, and they all go through together and graduate together, and that's what they support. That is not what we do here. What we do here is we try and get people who might not otherwise go into government to consider going into government, and kind of divert some people away from Goldman Sachs or PricewaterhouseCoopers or someplace like that to do, and you're all smiling, right? Because that's where you all would go otherwise, to get them to go into government instead. And so we take people out of all the different degree programs. So this means if you're not already at Georgetown, you must apply to a degree program as well as to the scholarship. So again, if you're here, this probably doesn't apply to you, but if you're listening and you're planning on applying for the scholarship, you also have to pick an academic program and apply to that separately. We do not have an academic program, okay? What classes you have to take vary depending on what program you're in. Most of the time, they are not like hugely demanding because we are able to get a lot of stuff in a short time, and then it combines with the other skills that you're learning in your degree program to make you employable. So for computer science, we would expect you to take network security, information assurance, crypto if possible, and then we have a bunch of other security courses that we would encourage you to take as electives if you have space. But network security, information assurance are sufficient to get in. If you're a STIA student, we expect the same. Like you will have to essentially get a CS minor and take information assurance and network security. Typically that means you have to take like data structures. Like you have to get up to data structures to be able to take those. Sometimes you can take data structures concurrently, and on rare cases, we've let people not take data structures, but it just depends on what the circumstances are, okay? If you're STIA. If you're in the security studies program, any SSP students here? Oh, great. So, yeah, it really depends on what they offer because it varies from time to time, but there's a lot of security studies policy courses that are really good. If you're able to take the hands-on security course, that one's pretty awesome, so if you haven't taken it already. And then the master's in cybersecurity risk management, you're good. You're specializing in what they need, so that's pretty straightforward. Just do whatever they tell you. And then, like I said before, we can support anything that any program that has enough cybersecurity. The reason we say that is because, like, I'm in the computer science department. I don't know about all the things Georgetown does. So every once in a while, people come up and they're like, what about this program? And I go, oh, that's new. I've never heard of that. Like the cybersecurity risk management was that at one point. And I just go, okay, well, let's look and see. And so if we can look and see that there's enough cybersecurity stuff for you to get employed as part of the degree program, not like something you can like sneak in on the side, it actually as part of the program, we can do that. So we can support any program that teaches enough cybersecurity to lead to employment. Now, one thing is, if you're not in a program that I've listed, one of those programs that I've listed, and again, this is for people recording, email me ahead of applying, because it's easier for us to verify ahead of time if the program will meet our requirements or not than it is to have you go through the struggle of applying and only find out there. There are programs with less cybersecurity that might be supportable. Like there might be that have like courses that have like 1 or 2 cybersecurity courses that may not be directly applied. We might be able to support those, but I'm just going to say in advance, we're probably not going to admit you as easily as we will as from the other programs, if that makes sense, because we need people who have the skills. So, and again, don't apply if there's some different program that I haven't listed and you haven't emailed me. You need to do that ahead of time. All right, other requirements. And I'm saying this based on past things. We are looking at changing the structure of the program a little bit just because these might change a little. But there's a couple things you have to do. We have a thing called the cybersecurity seminar. And the cybersecurity seminar is nothing fancy. Everybody gets together for about an hour every 2 or 3 weeks. We check in with each other, give you some basic security stuff. You all talk about how your job search is going, things like that. We do have mentoring and support, and that'll be part of that. We also require a communications seminar, and this, oddly enough, is one of the things that government employees like best about our program. Like the students who come out of Georgetown have been through the communications seminar, and the first semester is all about writing, and the second is about like presenting and video, stuff like that. And it's really good. The employers love it because it's a skill that beyond cybersecurity, most of the other cybersecurity students don't have, like the ability to communicate and present themselves, and it's very good. So the communication is a 1 credit hour course in the first 2 semesters of the program. This might change. We'll see. We might not do one next year and then do one the year after, so it might be in the second year. It depends on what we apply, just because. The other thing is that while you're doing studying and stuff like that, you also have to do your job search. If you're a 2-year student, you'll be looking for an internship the first year. If you're a 1-year student or in your second year, you'll be looking for a full-time job the second year. And that actually takes up a bunch of time, okay? It's pretty demanding, it does that. You gotta go to the job fair. Have I mentioned the job fair? Yes, I have. You gotta go to the job fair. This is the program-wide fair that typically happens in January. And you will go to that unless you have a job completely arranged. Like literally you have signed the contract and know where you will be working, okay? Now, I'm emphasizing the job fair because no one really wants to go to the job fair, and I'm telling you up front, you're going to the job fair, okay? Unless you have a contract job signed. And if you're in the program next year, come January, when you start trying to weasel out of going to the job fair, I'm gonna remind you of this moment, and I will replay the video for you. The worst part of the job fair is I have to go, and I have a job, so, okay. All right, the job fair isn't a big deal though. It's like a day and a half. We go one afternoon, there's like an evening award ceremony where they like talk forever. We normally bring some like Uno cards and like play Uno in the corner. And then the next day there's like a big conference floor with like a whole bunch of booths, and you go around and like talk to all the people who are hiring. That's how it works. Okay. Before this year, I used to say that SFS students are in high demand by agencies. And I say I used to because, like, who knows what's going to happen. The nice thing about this is that the SFS students fall into a very special hiring category. If you go and talk to a government agency and you say, I am a scholarship for student service, that like clears out a whole bunch of obstacles for them to hire you because you're in a special hiring category. I used to say it's incredibly unlikely you will not get a job, but because of the government hiring freeze last year, I think we had 5 people graduate, and I think 2 or 3 still don't have jobs. They did come up with a thing that extended the amount of time they have to find jobs because they recognized it was not the graduate students' fault, but they're sort of in limbo a little bit. So right now, I don't really know what to expect with hiring. Like I said, you know, the changes in government made hiring harder. It looks like things are getting better. I think I explained before that governments had to come up with a hiring plan, and they got that in place, and so they seem to be hiring now. So this may be passing, or probably hopefully will have passed by the time you would graduate and be expected to hold a job. If we admit you for next fall for 2 years, that's what you would graduate in like 28, and then you have 18 months to get a job. That's like how much time they have. So you would be into like the next presidential administration, and maybe something will be different then. I'm not sure. It might not. Who knows what will happen? Out of my control. One other thing is that if you're going to work outside the program, like paid work outside, we need to approve it, okay? And the reason for that is the stipend is there to support you so you can be dedicated to your studies and getting your degree. Hopefully you don't need to get another job if you're doing this because the stipend's supporting you. However, we will allow jobs that enhance your career prospects. So if you want to do like a paid internship somewhere that's in cybersecurity or work part-time for a cybersecurity company, we typically allow that, okay? But if you want to like work for, I don't know, bowling alley, I have no idea. Like if you want to do something that is not cybersecurity related, it would be like, do you really need to do that? Okay. Another note. In the past, what's happened is that acceptable places to work outside of government included these things called federally funded research and development centers like MITRE and MIT Lincoln Labs and stuff, or MITRE and SRI, national labs, and state and local government. So this has sort of changed. What happened was many of the scholarship for student service students across the country were all going to work for MITRE because it's a federally funded research and development center. They pay better, and you don't need a security clearance. So they were like vacuuming up huge numbers of program grads from the scholarship program, and that made Congress mad because they were paying all this money and like MITRE was getting all the benefit. So Congress passed a law that 80% of graduates must go into the federal executive branch service, okay? The way they do this is they make us make sure that 80% of the people go into federal executive branch service, and if we don't meet that target, we lose our funding, okay? And we want funding, not because it makes me rich, but because other people can come to Georgetown later. So you should not expect to get a job outside the federal executive branch, okay? Like 0 chance. Like you can't even apply. I will not let you apply unless like just like totally stop hiring like they did. So like the students we had were like, just find any job you can. We'll waive that for the time being. And so in general, we're just not gonna like, we're going to prohibit non-federal executive branch. So you got to go work for a federal executive branch. So if you have in your heart that like MITRE is where you've always wanted to work, this is not the program for you, just don't even think about it, okay? Oh, wait, I skipped it. Just don't even think about it, okay? All right, so this sucks because there's some places like the Governmental Accountability Office where we've sent students before they implemented this 80% rule that do really cool stuff. Like that's where I would want to work if I were doing government stuff, probably. And it's actually a legislative executive branch because it works for Congress, and so it doesn't really matter. And like I said, we've waived this right now because of the difficulty getting a job. It's possible we will waive it again, but I don't want you all counting on it, okay? So when it comes to thinking about MITRE, don't even think about it, all right? So you've already stopped, I hope. Applications are open now through March 9th. You can find them on our webpage. Literally, there's no point in applying super early. Like, I don't even look at any of the applications until they've closed. So nobody's gonna look at them, take your time, but don't miss the deadline. The application is pretty easy. We fill out this fancy online form. It's actually just a Google form that gives us all the information that we need. The information is the name, the program you want to support, your educational background, like what degrees, if you're a grad student, like where you went undergrad and what degree you got, what degree you're working on is, what your GPA is and stuff like that. So we'll ask for a copy of your unofficial transcripts. We don't need official ones. They're a pain to get anyway. And we'll need the name of a few references. These are people who can talk to your suitability about academic or working in government. We will contact the references. You do not need to send them anything. We get so many applications that we cannot contact everyone's references because then we would spend all our time dealing with reference letters, which is annoying. So we typically only get references for like the people we are going to interview, okay, before we interview them. You'll need your resume or CV that tells us about you. You'll need your unofficial transcripts. If you are accepted and you are coming from a school other than Georgetown, we will need to get your official transcripts. Like the form that you sign lets us look at your Georgetown transcripts through the back end, so we don't need that. And you need a statement about why you want to work in government, right? Because we want people who are committed and are going to come work and get a good experience at it, so we're looking for people who have a committed reason to work in government. These last three things, like the transcripts, your statement, and whatever the third thing was. Your resume, yeah, need to be combined into a single PDF document. We only let you upload one. And if you screw up and need to upload another one, actually Google Forms makes it impossible, really difficult to do that. So you have to email me, and then I get sad, okay? If all goes right, we will be through our interview process by April 15th, so that people who are applying to a graduate program and may come, again, this might be for the people listening to the recording, we will let you know, hopefully, before you have to commit in April, so if we're able to fund you or not. The thing about it, though, is that we cannot pay your deposit. So if we tell you that we're going to fund you and you have to pay a deposit to get into a program, we cannot pay that because you don't show up until the next budget year. We can't pay you this year, okay? So what do we look for? Like, how do we decide? We look for two things. People who are going to be successful academically, and successful doesn't necessarily mean people who are going to be the top of their class, just people who are going to succeed and learn the cybersecurity skills, and a commitment to government service. Those are the top two things that we look for. There is a third thing, and the third thing influences a little bit, but is not totally required, and it's the ability to get a security clearance. And I'd like to say a note about this, like security clearances are not required, and many people get jobs without them. But because we are essentially graded and renewed on the basis of our placement, we need to be able to place students, and students have an easier time getting a job. There's more jobs available to people with security clearance. Okay, so security clearance is important. Most of the time, security clearance is not necessarily a problem. There are a few things that might cause problem for security clearance. Criminal conduct is one. Recent drug use is another, and this one is kind of annoying and dumb because federal law prohibits marijuana use, state laws allow it. So, like, there's a lot of students who come in and they're like, well, yes, it's legal, and I'm like, not for this, right? So, if you want to get in the program and you're currently using drugs, just stop, like right now, and probably things will be fine later, right? Just stop. The other one is significant foreign contacts, like, we have had students who are dual citizenship. In order to get a security clearance, they had to renounce their non-U.S. citizenship, which was kind of crazy because the students were from Canada and Great Britain, which, like, up until recently were our huge allies, and we share all our intelligence with. Well, up until recently, we shared all our intelligence with them anyway. So I don't know why they did that. But what they're really worried about is if you are susceptible to blackmail because you have, like, extended family in another country who you visit and know and see frequently or something like that, okay? Now I'm going to note none of these are exclusionary, like if you have minor criminal conduct or drug use a while ago or cousins in France or something like that, right? Like probably it won't be a big deal. It might take a little longer for them to investigate your security clearance, but they are probably not exclusionary. So our goal in this program is to find people who are going to succeed in school and work and gain skills to work for government. That's like literally what we're looking for, and that is what we try and assess in the application when we're reading things. Okay. All right. Before I ask you for questions, I'm going to tell you some questions because I get the same questions very often. And the first question is, what is a strong application? And I'm going to tell you exactly what is written on our webpage, which is, our goal is to find people who will succeed in school and gain skills to work for government. That's it. So show you're going to succeed academically, show that you're interested and have like a reason and motivation for working for government, and that you'll probably be able to get a security clearance, and you will probably be a strong candidate. Okay, that's it. All right, other questions, and please ask away. I'm going to pause for a minute because I know most people are like hesitant to ask questions, so I'll just stand here. Yes, we can support some students for 1 year. You might have missed that because you came in a little late. We have to get permission to support 1-year students. That hasn't been an issue in the past. They came up with a rule saying you can't support students for 1 year, but I had already budgeted for a number of 1-year students, so I went to them and I was like, I already said I was going to do 1 year, and they were like, okay. So I cannot guarantee that they would say okay, but in the past they've been willing to say okay. So 1 year is possible, not impossible. Yeah. So what would happen is you would apply for the program. If you were someone that was selected, when you are selected, the selection process doesn't end with us. Like we come up with our pool and we send them off to Office of Personnel Management. And the Office of Personnel Management does whatever they do. I think they do like a quick background, like database search to make sure that there's, I'm hypothesizing, I have no knowledge of this, but I'm guessing they do like a quick background search and make sure everything looks okay. At that time, OPM would be like, you're trying to admit the student for 1 year, you need permission from the National Science Foundation for that, because it's the National Science Foundation rule, at which point I would email the program manager, and I would be like, I budgeted for all these 1-year students, and like, please let me have this one. And then they would say yes or no. So what would happen is we would find out before you were admitted, like, we would find out before you signed all the papers making you come in the program. It might be after April 15th, so if that makes a difference. But that's sort of how long it takes. So, yeah?
I want to assume that for like the classes that you encourage, like the network security and information assurance, like would you plan to take that once you're in the program?
You should just take them anyway. How's information assurance? What did we do today? Yeah. So today in class, everybody wrote a program, and I showed them how to break everybody's program. And then next week, like the assignment that's going to be posted tomorrow is they're like going to attack each other's programs and try and break into them. So it's fun. It's good stuff. And network security is good too. So you should just take those anyway. You don't have to plan on taking them ahead. Like if it's just, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But if you ended up like next year needing to take network security and wanting to as a sophomore, some people do. So it's not like you have to save it. It's just that in order to get through the program, you have to take it at some point, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
If you're initially applying as a like 1-year student, and you're still planning on applying for another graduate program after you finish this one, is that a possibility?
Okay, so the question is, I'm going to repeat it for the recording, is if you're already a student and you're planning on applying to another program, can we support that? And the answer is yes, we can. We have supported people for a year and then like supported them for another year. Typically, this has been done when we supported a undergraduate student for their senior year and then for a 1-year master's program. Now, what we cannot do is we cannot fund you for 1 year and then for the first year of a multiple year program. So for example, if you're in SSP and you're finishing up SSP and you want to take a 2-year, I don't know, master's in something else, we cannot just fund the first year master's. And the reason for that is we need you to like be going and getting a job. And the other reason is that if we pay for your first year and then somehow you fail out in the second year, it still counts against us. So does that help you? Okay. Yep. Yeah.
It's another question, but could you support people who start in the spring versus the fall?
Yes, we can, but not this spring, but spring of next year.
Like that?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So you'd be like a year and a half student or something like that, possibly. Or would you?
I can accept, I'm set to graduate in the fall if I want to.
Okay.
And so if I apply for grad school in 2 years, starting in the spring.
So the answer is yes, you can start in spring. I'm not quite sure how that math works out for you, but yes. So you would probably have to finish up. We'd have a deadline for you to finish up because there is a date that our grant expires if we don't get a renewal, and you cannot go past that date. And so it would be like August 2 years from now or something like that. So you'd have to have everything done by that. But yes, that's possible. Yeah.
If we've received a temporary security clearance in the past, should we note that in our application?
Yes, and the application I'll ask if you've ever had a security clearance because it helps us to know that you can get one. So yeah, we'll ask about that. So yeah. Oh yeah. I did not say that, but yes, that's what happens. So okay, so what will happen is like we will collect all the applications. We'll figure out who we want to interview, and we make like a priority list. Typically, we interview about 50% more people than positions we have. So if we have expecting to hire, like admit about 8, would probably interview about 12 people. After that round of interviews, sometimes we'll interview 1 or 2 more, just depending on how the first round of interviews went. We'll request letters from reviewers for those people. The interviews themselves tend to be a little bit weird, and I apologize for this. And the reason that they're weird is that you will interview with 2 or 3 people. I will probably be the first person to interview because I try to interview everyone first because I like go over some other detail, do the stuff in more detail to make sure you understand what you're getting into. And then someone else in the program will interview and maybe 2 people. Professors' schedules are really weird, and it's really, really, really hard for us to like get 2 or 3 people to interview like 8 people, and so we just make you interview more often, right? Does that make sense? So you, instead of doing like a group interview, because our schedules where we just like do it on Zoom or sometimes in person, and then, you know, it's easier to find a half hour that way. So it's mostly a scheduling thing, but because of that, you would interview with 2 or 3 people. And the interviews are like half hour, they're straightforward. Like, what's your social security number, what's your password, what's your mother's maiden name, stuff like that. So, yeah. Yeah?
How many references are needed and,
2.
okay, do they have to be professors?
Nope. But bear in mind, the things that we're looking for are ability to succeed academically and motivation for government service. So, ideally, you would have one person who is willing to speak to your academic abilities and one person who is able to speak to your governmental service. So if you have like an outstanding academic record and it's like clear that you're just going to crush whatever program you're doing, which is probably true for most people, then you could have 2 people who are like talking about government or your work ethic or something like that. So. Anything else? Yeah? We just want to know about you, yeah. So, and for the statement, everybody asked how long should the statement be, and my answer is long enough, but not longer. Like we don't have minimums or maximums. Just whatever you need to succinctly tell us about yourself. So. Anything else? All right, well, I'll hang out. If you have personal questions that you don't want to say in front of me, I'll be here. Thank you for coming, and hopefully you will apply because we need applicants. So.